want to say, by way of introduction, that many things endure over all the 40 years. Next year's our 40th anniversary, by the way. And many things have endured, such as our mission to cultivate courageous community leaders who can work across differences. And other things have changed, such as what do leaders need to know and do to be successful change agents in today's world, which is not the same as the world existed in 1994 when I went through LT. Many, many thanks to our co-presenters today, Becky, the chair of the curriculum committee, and Felicia, our vice chair, who have really led in a very generative and creative and thoughtful and strategic way the most recent evolution of our curriculum. And also special thanks to Tamara Myers, who's LT's Director of Adult Learning and Equity, and her expertise in adult education and learning, and also in anti-racism and social justice, has just been invaluable to our growth as an organization and as a program. I am really excited that LT can model learning and leadership in our region, and I really look forward to this conversation with you today. So as we go forward, if you have questions, please put them in chat. We'll get to them after the presentation, but now I'll turn it over to Becky and Felicia to tell you what we've been doing.
Thank you, Sue. It's so nice to be here. I always love being in community with LT alum and people who are interested in LT. It's a big part of my life. I went through the program in 2016, and I think not a day goes by, honestly, that I don't interact with someone either from my cohort or another year. I was just texting with Julie Pham last night. There's a group of LT folks coming to see our show at the Fifth Avenue tomorrow night. Like, it's just created such a really valuable community, and so it's been really meaningful for me to stay involved and engaged, and I'm really grateful for it. So yeah, I'm the chair of the committee this year, and a lot has changed. I've been on the curriculum committee since I graduated from the program in 2016. I was on the Arts and Culture Challenge, what we used to call Challenge Days. Now they have a new name. I'll leave that to the presentation. But I was on the Arts and Culture team for many years, and then vice chair last year, and that means chair this year. So we've made a lot of changes to the program, and so that's really what we're here to do today, is to talk about some of the adjustments we've made and why and how it's going. And at this mid-year point for this year, kind of what we're assessing and thinking about. I think a lot of it will continue because it's been a really successful year. So Felicia and I will go back and forth and just kind of talk through some of those highlights. But first, I want to just acknowledge the significant contributions of all of the curriculum committee members and chairs who have gone before us. It's not a huge lift, but it's a really important lift, and you have to put a lot of your time, energy, and emotion into creating a curriculum that's meaningful for each cohort. And I just want to acknowledge that, and the success and longevity in LT is done in large part because of the commitment of the volunteers who've been on the committees before us. You know, even since I graduated in 2016, the curriculum has shifted little by little. It's before my time, even the curriculum shifted, and Sue could talk about, you know, the history of adjustments along the way. But, you know, since 2016, we've had, you know, a greater political divide. Race and social justice movements have heightened the demand for equity and inclusion in corporate environments in our society, has increased, and is something that we hear about. Not that it wasn't always there, but we talk about it, and expectations of leaders have increased more and more. The Me Too movement, the pandemic and lockdown and people being in isolation has just shifted what are the expectations of leaders, and how do we prepare leaders to serve in this community in a more meaningful way that's going to be relevant to them today. And so a lot of the adjustments we've made have been to adapt the curriculum to meet those needs and to meet our up and coming leaders where they are. The organization went through a strategic planning process last year and have a new mission, vision, and values. And so the curriculum committee spent about 20 hours last summer going through the strategic plan and making sure that our curriculum met the needs of the cohort and was in alignment so that we could deliver on the promise of the strategic plan, mission, vision, and values. So I'm really excited about the direction, and Felicia and I are going to go back and forth through the primary programs that we have this year. So now I'll turn it over to Felicia.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Sue. Hi, my name is Felicia, and I'm so glad to be here with all of you. My LT year was 2021. My cohort was entirely on Zoom, which I think is pretty unique. The first time I used Zoom for anything was for my Leadership Tomorrow interview. So that was literally the first time I used Zoom, and I was sort of being coached through how to use Zoom and interviewing for the process. So very unique experience. I think I met my lab team for the first time in person at the very tail end of LT that year. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the adjustments that we've made, the evolutions that have taken place. I'll start with the flagship program. The flagship program still features two-day retreats and 7 days centered on regional issues using the framework of 7 elements of a healthy community. As a reminder, those are arts and culture, health and well-being, economy, basic needs, environment, education, neighborhoods, and communities. There are still quads and lab groups. The lab groups interview leaders and partner with a local organization on a project, which with the support of a coach. Here's what's new and or different for the 22-23 program year. We have a new structure for the curriculum committee. There are 6 members of the curriculum committee. They include Tracy Patterson, Jessica Werner, who's on this call, Joshua Heim, Shamari Jones, myself, and Becky, who meet regularly to plan the program year in coordination with Tamara Myers, Staff Director of Learning, Design, and Equity. Each member serves as a day host for the challenge days and retreats. As a day host, they plan the agenda, format the day, and invite guest speakers and panelists to participate in the activities and discussions. Shamari Jones is a facilitator who will guide the cohort through their curriculum experience each time they gather. He's a trained facilitator, LT alum, curriculum committee member, education specialist, and anti-racism and equity advocate. All curriculum committee members have experience in learning design, as well as experience with racial equity and anti-racism work. Day hosts consult with subject matter experts, alums, and current cohort members to design the day within the established goals and objectives. Current cohort members are also engaged to bring ideas for content in the day, to lead small group discussions in their field of work or lived experience, and to provide feedback on sessions. We have an updated framework, our goals and core questions. All of this has been revisited and I think tightened up in a really nice way. So the framework this year we will consider the many ways collective leadership can be practiced in the context of work toward equity, anti-racism, and social justice. Collective leadership in our context means working together toward a common vision and sharing responsibility, power, and decision-making. At each challenge day, lab teams have been working together to develop a practice that enhances their collective leadership. For example, active listening, healthy conflict, engaging in communities, etc. The cohort has been reading, I think many of them have completed it, The 4 Pivots by Dr. Sean Ginwright. In their quads, members discuss the text and how it applies to their leadership journey. The program goals, the flagship program is designed to promote community and belonging, expand and deepen knowledge about regional challenges and opportunities, and enhance leadership skills. Those include community and belonging, to build a diverse, multi-sector learning community in which participants can find belonging, inspiration, and support for action during and after the program year. Regional challenges and opportunities, to introduce a range of regional challenges and opportunities through the lenses of equity and anti-racism, envision and explore examples of policies, institutions, and systems that promote equity, and then leadership, to build a toolkit of leadership skills for individual and collective action so that organizations, communities, and the region may thrive. Our core questions that have been updated for the 22-23 curriculum are organized around the following questions. How might a region where people from all communities and identities thrive look, sound, and feel? What policy, institutional, and systemic changes might ensure that all communities have the power and resources needed to thrive? What role can a focus on healing play in creating necessary change? And how does collective leadership in pursuit of an equitable and resilient region look in practice? How could it look? And I think I'll turn it over to you, Becky, to review the values, caucusing, and retreat changes.
Thanks, Felicia. Yeah, as you were talking, it makes me think about really what we were responding to is the cohort really asking of us for a framework, for context, and for consistency. And so we've been able to really put those core questions and the 3 goals of each challenge day. So really working towards consistency and providing context all the way through. And as a reminder, if you've seen, LT has done a great job of communicating about the strategic plan, but I'll just review the value statements that were the basis of leadership practices that we chose to lean into over the course of the year. Accountability, leading with and acting with courage and integrity in and with communities. Anti-racism and social justice, inspiring leaders to create equitable policies, institutions, and systems to ensure that all communities have the power and resources they need to thrive. Belonging, building relationships that promote interconnectedness and commitment to one another's well-being. Collective leadership, our frame of the year, working toward a common vision and sharing responsibility, power, and decision-making, especially with those historically excluded. Community stewardship, serving for the greater good, leading and acting from any position with joy and with love. And finally, curiosity and humility, approaching dialogue with a desire to learn, considering multiple points of view, seeking to understand the complexity and interconnectedness of issues and solutions. So those are the values. We also have formalized racial caucusing and affinity groups into the program year. So LT formally integrated racial caucusing in just 2020 and 2021 after the 2018 cohort self-organized into caucus groups to support their health and well-being while engaging in the curriculum topics and conversations. This year, our current year, there are 4 sessions for racial caucusing, and each caucus is facilitated by a professional consultant that is consistent throughout the year. Our conversations by Racial Caucus this year were at our pre-fall retreat, the fall retreat, the mid-year retreat we just concluded, and there will be one at the upcoming final challenge day. There is a tremendous amount of racial diversity within the cohort, and there is also a broad spectrum of experience across the cohort for those who have engaged in racial equity and social justice work. We aim to provide space for groups to learn and engage and process the full LT experience and learnings in this format that can offer healing and support. We had over 30 suggestions for additional affinity groups that were suggested by the cohort in their pre-program survey. And as we approach mid-year, looking at March through May, we will have additional opportunities for them to gather by sector or gender or any number of ways that they've identified, again, over 30 for how they can get together and talk about their similarities and differences. We had our fall retreat, and we just concluded our mid-year retreat. So those continue to be 2 days. We have been at the University of Washington for both of our retreats this year. At first, we were at the Center for Horticulture and at the Intellectual House. And over the fall retreat, we really focused on introducing collective leadership, introducing that framework and providing examples of what is collective leadership across sectors. And then we really encouraged the labs to think about collective leadership as they were beginning to meet each other and think about how they might work together. That's really underneath connective leadership, is making sure they have the tools to succeed in a leadership format like their lab group. We worked on language building, explored more than 30 terms specific to race and social justice to explore and interrogate, because words matter, looking at what is unfamiliar. What do you know and want to learn more about? What do you not know and need to explore? And we learned in this exercise that the cohort sees an opportunity for asset-based framework for vocabulary, and they had dozens of suggestions for terms that we didn't include that they would encourage us to continue to explore. I'll say the cohort we have this year has been great participants, and when they have feedback, they give it in a really constructive and kind way of like, okay, we're engaging this way, here's another way you could look at it, think about that next time we meet or in the future. It's been a really constructive feedback process. Also in the fall, we built a collective timeline. The cohort built a timeline of regional and national events that have shaped society from 1860 to the present. We started our timeline at 1860. The cohort took it far, far, far in advance of 1860. They took ownership of that session, increased the boundary years to represent events dating to hundreds of years prior. And in 1 hour, a history of our region was created that inspired us to think bigger and broader about what it means to have collective impact. On the second day of the retreat, our lab coaches joined and really focused on supporting the teams in their retreat activities and started to build relationships. One thing I know I underestimated was just how much time and how central that coach role is to the cohort and lab success. So one thing we really focused on this year was making sure that they engage with them from the beginning to start to build trust and relationships and understand the dynamics of the group. We just completed our mid-year retreat. The retreat focus is a retreat on leadership for racial equity and social justice. It used to be called the race retreat or the diversity retreat. This year, it's about leadership for racial equity and social justice. We were at the Intellectual House at the University of Washington for both days, and we also took a field trip for our open space to the Lab for Human AI Interaction. We had cross-sector connecting activities across the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors for them to engage with each other and explore similarities and differences. We had multiple open space sessions for cohort members to lead small group discussions about topics that they wanted to pursue and generate action plans around. Owen Oliver led an Indigenous campus walking tour, which was very meaningful. Unfortunately, we had beautiful weather for them to explore and learn from Owen Oliver. We had caucusing by race with facilitators for the Black and African American caucus, non-Black people of color caucus, and there is a white caucus as well. And then we closed the retreat with what we call our head, heart, and feet reflections for what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what actions they might take as they move forward from the learnings of the retreat. It was a really powerful, meaningful retreat, and the open space was very effective, so much so that they've asked, to make sure that they have open space in all of their remaining activities over the course of the year. So just a few more things to go over. I'll turn it back over to Felicia to talk about possibility days, the makeup of the cohort as well.
Thank you. I agree. I think something sort of clicked for a lot of the participants with this last retreat day or possibility day around community and building together. And a lot of that took place in the open space sessions. So as modeled in our core text, the 4 pivots, we reframed the approach to regional issues and challenges by calling them possibility days. The seven possibilities days have featured the following breakdown. So from 9 to 12:30, topical focused sessions on regional issues in an overview, examples of collective leadership, asset-based approaches to equity. From 12:30 to 1:30, we have lunch. From 1:30 to 2:45, there's the quads work with the 4 pivots between October and January that took place, and affinity spaces or open space sessions, which is what we've been moving into now between February and May. 3 to 4:30, collective leadership, skill building takes place in lab teams, and 4:40 to 5 are reflections, feedback, and closing. The LT23 cohort is made up of the following breakdowns. You can also check them out on the website. There are 31% from the nonprofit sector, 31% from the public sector, and 39% from the private sector. 3% non-binary, 72% who've identified as female, and 25% who've identified as male. let's see, 47% identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. 53% identify as white. The level of experience in racial equity and anti-racism breaks down to 21% feeling very familiar or skilled in that area, 32% with a moderate comfortability, and 47% identify as novice or emerging in terms of experience around racial equity and anti-racism. Areas where skill building is desired they've expressed modeling anti-racist leadership in all aspects of life, building confidence in speaking about race, racism, racial equity, anti-racism in groups, building advocacy skills, influencing others, being resistors, learning about lived experience of people who are not white or influenced by white Western traditions, allyship, facilitation skills. And that's, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of different levels of experience, and we're, that's always the challenge, is to how to, meet people where they are and create an experience for such a large group of people that's going to satisfy where they are, and create learning opportunities for everyone. So we just had our mid-year retreat. As we said, we've still got several possibility days left, as well as their final possibility day, and of course graduation. And they're just diving into working on their community projects together in their lab groups. But we've already had some learning moments, as this year we changed some things. The curriculum committee used to be 25, 26 people, and each possibility day, which we called challenge, had 3, 4, 5 people planning it. Each time the cohort got together, they met a whole new group of people that were facilitating their conversations, and those were some things that we just began to see, like we needed consistency. We needed people who could know the dynamics, know the people in the room, and know how to meet them with their needs. And that's why we have a consistent facilitator, Shamari. Every time the cohort gets together, Shamari is there, and that helps to build trust and familiarity. The cohort now being 6 people, they've seen us, all of us were at the retreat, and we've been day hosts along the way, and we've checked in with the lab groups and the cohort. And I think that has really helped to have that consistency and support. At the same time, we do believe we want to grow our curriculum committee by a couple of people, just to make sure that we can all carry the responsibility without any extreme burden of time. I know a couple of folks on the committee have had, I think 3 folks have had 2 days where they're day hosts, and that's a big lift. So looking at perhaps having just each committee member have be a day host once next year. That means growing by 2 or 3 people. We are interested in, and we're having some conversations about making sure we have greater private sector representation on the committee. We've got government and not-for-profit experience right now. That changes whether or not someone's working or not working, whether you're a consultant or not, as some of us have done. But really formally, we're looking at, some of the larger corporations who participate, and, send folks to the committee to make sure we know that the folks in the membership have their experience and their work background represented, so that they can apply what they learn to the private sector as well. We are returning to overnight retreats next year. We were in person this year, which, oh, thank goodness, because that made such a big difference in them having an opportunity to bond. But the other night I was talking to our coaches, and we were talking about how effective the open space was. And they were like, why haven't we been doing this all along? We should have been doing this all along. And I was like, well, does open space create trust? Or do we need trust to have successful open space? Like, could we have been doing this all along? And the coaches were like, you only create trust at the bar. Like, if they're not, really bonding and choosing who they get to interact with, and, instead of like, oh, well, we're matching you with this group and you have to talk to this group, until they get that just opportunity to connect and know each other as human beings, they're not, you can't just manifest trust out of nowhere. And so I'm really excited to have the 2 overnight retreats outside of Seattle next year. And again, we've received really positive response this year. It feels like a very open, honest relationship with the cohort. Not that there haven't been bumps along the way, but I think the changes that we have made have been really, really effective. And some of the comments at Open Space of hearing some of the folks talk in the fall about where they were, what their experience was, and then hearing some of the comments just a couple of weeks ago. It's like, wow, folks are learning and growing and putting themselves out there in some really bold ways. So very meaningful. I'm proud of what we've done this year, and would encourage anyone to apply for next year. I think we'll be continuing on this model. Not changing a lot, because a lot of things have worked. And I think that's something we can look at for LT, is that, we're not reinventing the days every year, and having a consistent program every 1, 2, or 3 years. So we'll continue to receive feedback from the cohort, and make sure that we're learning and growing. The curriculum committee, of course, goes through June, and then Felicia will become the chair after that. And the cohort will, or the curriculum committee will always meet over the course of the summer, assess what happened last year and what needs to continue on or be adapted and improved, or something we might need to cut based on the feedback that we receive, and making sure we have what we need to support it. So that's kind of where we are. And we just wanted to make sure, folks out there who are alums know, like, it's not unrecognizable, as you know, as Felicia talked through kind of what the core tenets of the program, but there have been adjustments along the way. We just want to make sure, if you're recommending folks to be nominated or try out the program, or just curious about what it's like for folks going through it today, just to share what the thinking was behind it and how things are going. So welcome. Any questions? I think it's 12:32 right now. We've got some time for questions. If we can answer them, we'd be happy to.